Hello everyone, welcome back to another Project Gladiator weather forecast. Today I'll be covering the weather for July 18th of 2023, and currently we have three main areas for severe weather development and two separate secondary regions for severe weather development for Utah into parts of Nevada and southern Arizona. Just like yesterday, I likely will not cover these in today's forecast, as these three will be the main focus and probably take up a lot of time today. But I will try to make it quick. But again, I probably won't cover these two marginal threats for Arizona, Utah, and Nevada. However, there is an enhanced risk for western Tennessee into parts of Kentucky, Illinois, and Missouri, with a teardrop-shaped slight risk extending back across Missouri into parts of Kansas and Nebraska. Threats for this include the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes. For wind, there's the possibility of destructive outflow gusts, as well as for hail, there is the possibility for large hail to develop associated with the storm systems that move through this region. There's also two other slight risks, one for eastern North Dakota, which has the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes, the possibility of some locally strong wind gusts, as well as the possibility of large hail. And then there is another slight risk for the New England region into parts of eastern New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, western Massachusetts, and parts of Connecticut. Threats for this do include the possibility of some strong wind gusts, as well as the possibility of some isolated small hail. And then as for the marginal threats back down here, there is the possibility of some locally strong wind gusts, but not all that much of a possibility of hail at all. Taking a look at our pivotal weather model, starting off with our 500 millibars like we usually do, you can see for all three main regions of severe weather development, the jet stream is passing through, and you can see where we have the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes. You can see the low pressure system just south of the Hudson Bay is giving the jet stream a little bit of a change in direction, which will allow for the possibility of some directional shear in place, which will allow for the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes across western Tennessee. And then back towards the other 2% tornado threat in North Dakota, you can see that we do have another low pressure system in Canada, which is giving the jet stream another smaller change in direction, which will allow for the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes across North Dakota. And you can see for the regions that have the possibility of large hail, very strong mid-level flow aloft will allow for the possibility of some elongated hodographs and some strong speed shear, which will allow for the possibility of large hail. And then back towards the New England region, where we have a 5% hail threat, you can see fairly strong mid-level flow will slightly elongate hodographs. However, I don't think fairly strong lapse rates in this region are in place to allow for a increased hail threat. As well as it being primarily zonal flow, with no change in direction, the possibility of one or two brief tornadoes is not going to be in place, as very weak directional shear is not going to be in place to support the possibility of tornadic development in the New England region. Taking a look at our dew points for all three regions, starting off with the enhanced risk region, you can see that we do have some fairly strong dew points in place, dew points that are in the upper and mid 70s, as well as the low 80s in some regions. That is some crazy strong, seasonally strong dew points. As you can see, the only place that we really see dew points this strong are in the Gulf of Mexico in the Atlantic Ocean. So seeing dew points in the 80s this far up north, I mean, we did get some in Oklahoma a few days ago. However, there are some, I think, further up north in Arkansas and parts of Missouri, and that will contribute to the possibility of very strong instability with the possibility of our lapse rates. Even if we don't have strong lapse rates in place, we will definitely get the possibility of very strong instability with dew points this strong. And then taking a look at the slight risk region for the North Central Plains in North Dakota, you can see dew points in the mid and upper 60s will allow for the possibility of some fairly strong instability, possibly getting up to the upper moderates depending on our lapse rates. And then back towards the New England region, you see that we do have dew points in the mid and upper 60s, as well as the low 70s back further out east, and with the possibility of very weak lapse rates without the potential of a increased hail threat. Very weak lapse rates are expected for this region, and will allow for the possibility of much more moderate instability, likely being in the 1000s to 2000s range, and maybe getting up to the upper 2000s range in the areas that we have increased dew points. Taking a look at our lapse rates for the various locations, the three main regions for severe weather development, you can see starting off with the enhanced risk region, it does look like we are going to have some fairly strong lapse rates ahead of storm development, and with the crazy strong dew points that we have, we could definitely see the possibility of very strong instability, even back further down south and to the west. It does look like that we have very strong lapse rates in place. So with the very strong instability that we have, we could definitely see the possibility of very strong instability, possibly getting up to the 4,000s as well. And then taking a look at the North Dakota slight risk region, you can see that we do have lapse rates that are fairly strong as well. Lapse rates that are reaching the 6s for the slight risk region, and the 7s further down south. That is going to allow for the possibility of much more moderate instability with the much more moderate dew points that we have, possibly getting up to the upper moderates, but mostly going to stay around the upper 2,500 range. And then taking a look at the New England slight risk region, you can see that we do have very weak lapse rates in place. They are mostly around the the low 5s. With the dew points that we have, we are going to see much weaker instability, possibly going to stay around the 1,000 to 2,000 range. However, we could possibly see some stronger instability in the places that we see some stronger dew points, like along the coast with dew points in the 70s. And what this means in terms of hail and wind for all three locations, stronger lapse rates are going to lower the optimal hail development layer further down to the ground, which will be much easier to reach with a strong updraft from crazy strong instability that could be expected across the enhanced risk region, and could be possible for the slight risk region as well. Taking a look at our instability, starting off with this enhanced risk region, you can see that we do have very strong instability in place. K values that are reaching the mid and upper 4,000s, even the low 5,000s in some locations along the Arkansas and Missouri border into parts of northwestern Tennessee. That is going to allow for the possibility of large hail with elongated photographs and strong lapse rates and strong level flow aloft, and the possibility of some destructive outflow gusts with very strong instability. And with whatever directional shear we have, we could definitely see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes. And then back towards the North Dakota slight risk region, Cape values are reaching mainly in the moderates and the upper moderates as well, possibly getting up to the low 3,000s. However, they are mostly staying around the 1,000s to 2,500 range. And with strong mid-level flow aloft and the possibility of elongated photographs, we could definitely see the possibility of large hail back towards that region as well. And then for the New England region, you can see that Cape values are mostly going to be in the 1,000s, 2,000s range. However, in areas that we do have dew points that are reaching the 70s, we have Cape values that are reaching the upper moderates, even the low 3,000s, it looks like in some isolated regions. That is going to allow for the possibility of some locally strong wind gusts across the majority of the region, as well as the possibility of some isolated small hail. Taking a look at our bulk shear, when I take a look at bulk shear, I am primarily looking for speed shear and apart from directional shear. So taking a look at our speed shear on our bulk shear, you can see starting off with the enhanced risk region, we have very strong speed shear in place behind that system. We have some speed shear that is getting up to the 70 and 80 knots. However, some of that could be some directional shear in there. However, a lot of this is likely going to be mostly speed shear, and speed shear that does reach the 70 knots and 60 knots and even the 80 knots is going to definitely allow for the possibility of elongated photographs and the possibility of large to very large hail, possibly even gorilla hail in much of this region. And then back towards the North Dakota slight risk region with the possibility of large hail as well, you can see a very strong mid-level flow aloft and some fairly strong speed shear is definitely going to allow for the possibility of some elongated photographs and the possibility of some large hail. And then let's take a look at the slight risk region back towards the New England region. We do have a fairly strong, but overall not as strong mid-level flow and speed shear compared to the other enhanced risk and slight risk region. However, it does look like we could see the possibility of some slightly elongated photographs and the possibility of some isolated small to medium hail. Taking a look at our storm relativity, so we can take a look at our directional shear for both tornado threat locations. Let's zoom in here and go to the 2% tornado threat that is associated with the enhanced risk region. you can see you don't really see all that much off the bat. However, as storms do move through the region, you can see in that 2% tornado threat area, we do have a storm relative velocity or directional shear in the 150 in the 180 meters squared a second squared. So that could allow for the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes with the very strong instability that we have. And it does look like we could have the possibility of a continuated tornado threat into eastern Tennessee overnight as well. With storm relative velocity and directional shear that does reach the 170 and the 180 and even the 200 meters squared a second squared. And with fairly strong instability that could be in place, we could see the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes overnight across eastern Tennessee as well. And then taking a look at the 2% tornado threat for the North Dakota slight risk region, you can see that we do have some fairly strong directional shear in place. After storms do develop, it is expected to rise into the 130 to 120 and even the 190 meters squared per second squared. So that will be sufficient enough for a 2% tornado threat with the instability that we are given. This could support the possibility of 1 or 2 brief tornadoes. However, further up north, you can see that we do have some even stronger directional shear, getting up to the 330 meters squared a second squared. So that could allow for the possibility of an increased tornado threat by 4:30 p.m. today EST. However, it really all depends. It might not happen. It could happen. Overall, for the entire region, it does look like 2% tornado threat is going to be the main threat for today. Now that I've told you the weather, please go down to the description and check out the socials for Project Gladiator and join the Discord for any updates on Project Gladiator. And if you live in any of the areas that I covered for severe weather development for today, please stay weather alert for the time being, and hopefully I will be able to see you guys tomorrow with another forecast.